All right, so why don't we get started? Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining for today's Illusive webinar, Faster Incident Investigation with Forensics on Demand. My name is Jason Silverman. I'm on the product marketing team at Illusive Networks. I'm just going to begin with a few announcements, and then I'll turn things over to our presenter, Phil Chen, customer success engineer, who will be making today's presentation. Firstly, today's webinar is being recorded, and you will receive the recording of the webinar in an email to your inbox, likely by tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. It'll also be available on our website on our resources page, like all of our previous webinars as well. Secondly, you can ask questions, and we will reserve time for questions. During today's webinar, it was specifically reserved time towards the end, but you can ask at any point in the Q&A tab on your webinar control panel. I'll keep an eye out on that, yeah, we encourage you to ask. One more thing I just want to announce, in this specific webinar, many people might know Illusive as a deception platform. Today's webinar won't be focusing specifically on our deception or threat detection capabilities, but rather what happens when there is an incident. What kind of forensics do you get, both in that moment, but also that you can pull on demand. So if you want to find out more about our deception capabilities, you're always welcome to request a demo or to visit our website and to find out a lot more information there, or view our previous webinar recordings. But today's webinar will focus specifically on our forensics capabilities. So with all that said, I'm going to turn things over now to Phil Chen, our customer success engineer. Phil, over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, everyone. So my name is Phil Chen. I'm with Illusive Networks, a customer success engineer. And today we're going to talk about how to get faster forensics investigation with forensics on demand. So today, we all know that everyone's working from home right now during COVID. There's roughly around 70 million people, estimated telecommuters right now. And part of that is SOCs are being severely overwhelmed. So right now, medias are reporting that there's 39% of security incidents being missed, and 50% of SOC alerts are already false positives. If you're coming from a SOC environment right now, you probably are already experiencing this. So here's what we're going to do to make your lives easier. So a couple of different, so we have a lot of different customers with small and large SOCs, and what we're hearing from them is that there's too many alerts with too few analysts right now. There is pretty much the new norm is that there's an increase in SOC alerts, and there's just not enough time in the day to triage them. So what we're seeing right now is that tier ones are estimating around 19 to 24 minutes per incident. So if you're in a SOC right now, you probably already know that this is probably a very likely answer. Tier 2 is spending about 60 minutes to 80 minutes, and tier 3 is spending about 3 to 6 hours per incident, because they have to track down all the different they have to basically collect all the information in order to assess whether or not this incident is legitimate or it's a false positive. So with them multitasking, it's taking a lot longer time. So it's all going down to the insane alerts that are coming in, and there needs to be more automated response and coordination. So that's where we come in. So instant forensic intelligence for any alert that you have. So automated forensic collection for any system. Whenever security events are generated, Illusive is actually agentless, so we can actually retrieve this information in less than a couple seconds. And we also have the ability to provide rich artifact timelines, which will increase your SOC efficiency and speed up incident response. We have the ability to detect the infiltration entry point of an attack, also provide you with any misconfigurations and vulnerabilities. Later on, I'll talk about a specific use case where this is actually mentioned. Find initial infecting vectors, scan for malicious files. So this one's a very, very special one. When we conduct our forensic investigation on any machine, during the time when forensic is launched, we're actually scanning all of the running processes as well as the prefetch files on the machine that's run on. And we're going to be able to take those hashes and upload them to VirusTotal. VirusTotal is the second layer of detection where if there's anything malicious running, we'll also let you know as well. So this is another layer of antivirus protection if you have an EDR or if you don't have an EDR in general. And as well as we can also discover real-time connections. So this is essentially grabbing all of the network connection information that's currently established, whether they're connecting to other machines internally or they're connecting to machines externally out to the internet. We'll also provide you with the executable that's also tied to that connection. So you know exactly what the computer is doing, what port they're going out of, and as well as what program are they using to do that. And then from all this information that we learn, we can also help you apply lessons learned practices and also fix misconfigurations that you might not have found otherwise. So our forensics on demand could be collected a couple different ways. You can use the forensics on demand to use the REST API calls. You can also just directly request them through the interface, or of course, if an actual incident was triggered. So as we plant deceptions on machines, if an intruder uses one of the deceptions, they're also caught and forensic is ran on the machine immediately as well. In the next slide, we'll walk you through on what kind of data we're actually collecting. One of those would be a screenshot of what the user is currently looking at. The screenshot is actually captured the moment the forensic touches the machine or when the incident triggers. Time is of the essence, so we definitely want to capture what they're currently looking at. If they're using one monitor or 4 monitors, we'll capture all the monitors that they have, and the resolution is 100%. And the next one is going to be very important: PowerShell and command line history. This is very, very rich in forensics because a lot of different attackers typically will use command line and PowerShell to move laterally or to run scripts. We'll be able to look at all that information because it's still sitting in memory. For PowerShell, we support version 5, and for command line history, we support all the way up until from the last time the machine has been rebooted. So that's a lot of command line history that we can capture. In addition to all this, we can provide you with an attack path to domain admins and crown jewels. I'll speak more about this. This is related to once the system is fully set up, you identify what your critical assets are. You identify what kind of domain admin security groups you have. And then after after Illusive knows about these information, we are able to scan on the machine to see if there are any residuals of the domain admins or if there are any connections going to crown jewels. And the benefit of all this is that, if you have an EDR, you don't have an EDR, this is pretty much going to be for you. So this is one of those tools that any environment can use because you can leverage this on any machine. Here's a quick screenshot of what we collect. So let's pay attention to the left-hand side. The left-hand side is for system information. Like we'll be able to get the OS type, the user operating system, what users are currently logged in, and what users have logged on in the past. We'll also automatically talk to your Active Directory and pull down AD information from the user that's logged in. This is going to save you a lot of time, so it prevents your analysts having to go to Active Directory directly and looking up the user to see who it is, or what department they're in, or what region they're in. Next thing is the desktop screenshot, which is very important. The risk insights are going to be if there are any residual domain admin credentials sitting on the machine, or if this machine has ever connected to a critical asset. Next one is process information. So these are the triggering processes. The triggering processes is only when incidents are triggered. So for example, let's say I find a deception, I'm using Windows Remote Desktop to leverage that. And as I go to one of the deceptions, I'm instantly caught. So when we run forensics, we can see that there is a network connection being established on RDP going to a trap server, and then we know exactly what causes it, and that's what the triggering process is. Next, we have a bunch of network information, which we will provide you with all the different active connections from the endpoint, all the DNS records from the machine itself on what they've been calling out to over the internet. We'll also give you a very, very deep network information, such as TCP information, ARP tables, routing tables, as well as all the different IP addresses on the machine itself. This is really, really important in case you have an advanced attacker that's trying to spoof their MAC address, or they're adding additional addresses onto their NIC cards. You can see their spoof address, and you can see also their old address as well. Next thing is also we'll be able to show you all the active and inactive share connections that this machine has made. And then finally, everything in memory, which is the running services, running processes, all the different process handles, Kerberos information. Then we get into some advanced forensics, which is the MFT data, Windows event logs. The Windows event logs are going to be collected in full. So that means that you'll get security, application, and system, pretty much as if you were sitting right in front of the computer. The next thing we'll also get is all the shim cache registry files, which is the Windows application compatibility information. We also provide MFT data. So for those of you that are not familiar with MFT, MFT is really, really important when it comes to forensic analysis. What it provides us is the timeline on which applications or files have been introduced to the file system. For example, let's say there's an attacker who came in, there's a person who downloaded a piece of malware, and the malware opened up a command control backdoor, allowing for an attacker to come in. Once they came in, they probably triggered an alarm. So as a manager, you probably will want to know, how did this happen and when did it happen? So we can tell you that they went to a specific website. That we can also tell you when they downloaded a specific malware and when did it execute to the point where the person started coming in. So we can develop a timeline for you on who, where, what, when very, very quickly. And then finally, we get into miscellaneous items such as startup processes, process first and last time runtime, and then the PowerShell history. And this is fairly important because if you have a piece of malware that supposedly deletes itself afterwards, it may latch onto a starting process the next time the computer starts up, and it may masquerade as another process. So it's really, really important to understand that you have the capability of seeing what could be starting up upon the next startup, and if everything looks really, really odd. This is a screenshot of our forensics timeline. It's very easy to consume chronological reports of all the artifacts. And so on the left-hand side, what you're looking at is some general information about the artifact information, such as the time range of what we're collecting, the hour range, the ability to filter by star items that you're looking at, and then as well as the filtering types. On the left-hand side, it gives you the entire enumeration of what we collected for this particular event. So everything is broken down into categories, and then within each category, you have a parenthesis that tells you how many artifacts are inside that category. This lets you really quickly know that if you're searching for something specifically, these are the following categories that we found that keyword in. So as you can see, everything's in chronological order from the latest to the oldest. From here, we can turn on different categories and see which one is running, like see which pieces of evidence are considered important. We can star those items, and then once we have fully gone through the forensics and starred the items, we can basically select show star only, and then we'll be able to get an exact timeline on what exactly happened in a chronological order. When you open up one of the specific artifacts, you'll get very, very deep information, such as what type of event was triggered, what is the source IP, the destination, for example, what did they hit, what user was logged on. And then on the left-hand side, you'll notice that when you search for something, that the forensic information changes on the category. For this one, specifically what we're looking at is a connection that was established using Windows Remote Desktop. And then we're also able to see in real time the connection of the DNS information. Here's another event that has occurred. So we see that there's an elusive event, which is an FTP event. This means that they have triggered one of the deceptions, and they used a FTP deception to go somewhere. And when we ran forensics on the machine, we see that there's an FTP program running on the machine. We're actually able to see the command line, what they used, and as well as the parent process in which who launched the actual ftp.exe. In this situation, we actually see that there's a command line who opened up FTP program. So this allows us to understand, how did they actually launch this? Did they launch it directly? Did they launch it indirectly? Meaning, did they use a third-party tool, or did they use like command line or PowerShell to open it up? And if they did do that, what kind of command line did they use? So here we can see that they put in a command line called FTP and then HR. which allows them to initiate some sort of script or to, feed it some parameters. Here's an actual screenshot from an attack. So as we got the screenshot from an attack, we can actually see their entire desktop. So what you're looking at here is actually two desktops, but merged into one single screenshot. And on the right-hand side is the attacker machine. The attacker machine scanned for a machine, and then in the back end, they were able to find the credentials to compromise it. And how you know that they've already compromised it is pay attention to the very bottom of the screen. You'll notice that there's two different start bars, right? There's a start menu from Windows 10 on the left-hand side, and then a start menu on the right-hand side, that's Windows 7. So the attacker used a Windows 7 machine and compromised a Windows 10 machine, and they basically remote into the machine and maximized it. And then they're just kind of browsing around on the left-hand side. So forensics on demand at work, you require a couple different pieces. So obviously you require an Illusive management server, and then you have the Illusive console that's used on Chrome, Google Chrome, that allows all your users to access all of this data. And then you have all your different users out in the on VPN or within the network, and as well as we have the different incorporations of different technologies. This would be your SOC team having your SIEM, your EDR, your SOAR, antivirus, IPSs, and proxies. So that's basically where your command and control centers are. So when forensics gets collected, we are able to send that information back to Illusive, and then we would be able to generate two different kinds of reports. The first report will go into Illusive console. We can also send that report into your SOC as well. And once it's in your SOC, you can pretty much do whatever you want with that data. You can enrich existing systems, or you can attach it to ticketing systems, such as like ServiceNow or DMC. As far as integrations go, we have quite a few number of integrations that we can integrate with, mostly with SIEMs and SOARs, and as well as other, and also the ability to distribute the forensic package. So on the middle left-hand side, we support SCCM, we support Tanium, we support Microsoft Intune, as well as some internal deployment systems, like for example, PSExec or WMI. So those are the methods that how we can talk to the machines. On the right-hand side, we have the different stores that we're able to automatically natively integrate with. Azure Sentinel, Palo Alto Cortex, Splunk Phantom, and Simplify. For your SIEMs, we can support natively out of the box Logarithm, Rapid7, ArcSight, Splunk, QRadar, and Azure Sentinel as well. So these are basically, we use a very generic syslog, a Ceph format. We can send all the different incident data to your SIEM for awareness. And then when they need to access the information, they can click on the URL and it'll bring them to the Illusive console to access all of the rich forensic data. For those of you that want the forensic data, but they don't want to look at from the UI, we can also export the data to another format if you like into Splunk. Some other additional integrations that we currently have are cloud integrations. So we can basically tap into your Azure. We can also go into your AWS, and as well as other various clouds. And then for threat intelligence, we can use VirusTotal to scan for that hashes that I mentioned earlier. And then for privileged access management is for additional authentication. For example, if you have a specific service account that you want to use, and the service account is managed by CyberArk or BeyondTrust or Hitachi HiPAM, we can use those as well. So all of this is combined using our REST APIs. So you can basically we can create APIs so we can talk to the machine and be able to grab forensics from the machine remotely without having to go into Illusive directly. So here's an example of a customer of an actual incident that has happened. So Illusive Forensics was able to reduce the response time by 90%. So beforehand, they were doing a lot of manual processing, isolating the computer, conducting initial incident analysis. They didn't have any kind of forensics. I believe they used Tanium at the time to collect some of the data. But Tanium, as you know, is very limited on what kind of data is provided in comparison to what Illusive can provide as well. So what they were able to do was combine the data together, and then they were able to enrich the data with our information, and they were able to speed up dramatically the response time. Because we provide a real-time screenshot, we can actually tell what the user is doing. Tanium also can give you some, basic information such as what users logged in, information about the system, but most EDRs can do that anyway. But we basically fill in the gaps, and we provide you with every other piece of data that most EDRs cannot provide. And through that combination of information along with screenshot and the ability to search through all of it very quickly and develop a timeline, a lot of analysts are seeing a major reduction in response time. So pretty much we're now acting as a source of truth or secondary source of truth for this particular bank. And they're able to streamline the process now. So this particular bank has incorporated the forensics on demand into their QRadar. So the QRadar will basically fire any alert, and it goes directly into their Cortex, Palo Alto Cortex. Cortex will evaluate the source IP, where it comes from. If it's an internal IP address, it would automatically send that data to an API, to Illusive, to grab forensics. And if the forensic was successful, then the Cortex will tell the analyst saying that forensic is now available. And if the actual forensic is not available, then it would automatically close the actual incident. So this is a form of automation that a lot of customers are doing in order to automate how many alerts are actually useful and how many alerts are not. Because if there's no forensics, right, and if you only get a small piece of subset of data, then it may not be worth the analyst's time. So you have to pretty much prioritize what you're going to be looking at. If you have the data in front of you, then that's considered a very, very viable incident to look at. Whereas if you get an incident and you don't have any information to go off of, then it's kind of like you're just second guessing or shooting in the dark. You don't want that. So before we have tier one, they spend about 20 minutes, 20 incidents per day. This is an average on what the bank is seeing, and as well as across most enterprise customers. So after they started incorporating Illusive Forensics into their day-to-day process, in means of what I just mentioned, how forensics runs automatically, it goes into their SOAR, and then it lets them know that this is an open ticket, forensic is available for them to review. They can easily see in our forensics that there's a screenshot there, and they can find what they're looking for based on the incident. So now they're spending about 1 to 5 minutes per incident now. So now they're able to save about 5 hours per day per analyst. So this actually has seriously decreased the tier one SOC dramatically. So it's actually way more manageable now for them. For tier two, they're spending less than 10 minutes now per incident because they have all the forensic data available in order to make the assessment whether or not this is malicious, this is intent, this is false positive, and so forth. And tier three is actually spending less than 30 minutes now. So this is by far probably the most significant change is the tier one and tier three. Tier one gets the root of everything. They get all the tickets, they get all the false positives. Their job is to weed out the false positives and escalate what could be real, right? Tier two are usually limited with certain security tools and knowledge, and usually they'll have medium-based assessments and knowledge on what to do. Tier three is your final defense, where basically they have very deep understanding on their entire systems. They also have a lot of security knowledge on what to look for within the incident, within the forensic data. And that is the conclusion of our demo. Do we have any questions regarding any of the actual items that we collect for forensics, or in general, in terms of what other use cases that we can use this in? Now would be a great time to ask those questions.
Sure, thank you, Phil. While we await some questions, just a reminder that people can ask questions via the Q&A tab in the webinar control panel. And just while you're entering your questions now, if you have them, I'll just kind of talk about a little bit of the next steps that are on this slide here. As I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar specifically has been focusing on our forensics capabilities that you get once an incident has been detected. But if you want to get more of a comprehensive demo on our detection capabilities and our ability to prevent lateral movement inside a network, you can request a demo at the link you can see, illusivenetworks.com/demo. On our resources page is where you can find all of our previous webinar recordings, but also a lot of other good stuff, like case studies, white papers, feature briefs, and other items can be found there. so you can learn a lot more about Illusive and how we can help your security teams. You can also likewise visit our blog or follow us on social media. LinkedIn and Twitter are there on the screen. So I'll read out a couple of questions, and then again, if people still have, you can ask now. One, Phil, people were asking about was that your presentation is focused on source forensics. Does Illusive have target forensics as well?
So I'll try to answer that question as best as I can. Target forensics, meaning you're probably wanting a specific category. And the answer, if that's what you're looking for, the answer is yes. So for example, let's say out of all the items that you just saw on the page where all the forensics is collected, and you only want specific information, such as, let's say, you only want PowerShell history, you want command line history, or you may only want DNS information. The answer, that could be extracted from our database. So we also have an API that gives you the ability to extract only specific information out of our forensics, and it can be exported out into an API call, and the data that's returned would be in JSON format.
Okay, great. And then there was another question also about just in terms of, does this go hand in hand with pricing and licensing with our deception capabilities and attack surface manager, or is it a separate item?
Okay, that's a great question. So this is actually already included inside your ADS system or ASM system. So for those of you that are Illusive customers, then this is automatically available to you. You may know about the forensic capability, but you may not know about the forensics on demand capability. So that's already included as well. You just have to basically, create this APIs, create an API key, and that could be done very, very easily within just a couple of seconds. So reach out to your CSMs or your engineers to schedule that, and we can definitely do that for you.
Great. Or for people who are not currently Illusive customers, again, you can contact us via requesting a demo on the top link on the screen there. Another question just came in. Let me just take a look. Oh, just in terms of the recording of the webinar, we will send the recording. You can find it in two places. Firstly, it'll probably be in your email inbox tomorrow morning, by tomorrow morning, might even be late today. We just need to, process it and prepare an email and all that stuff. So you can check it there, or on our resources page on our website, illusivenetworks.com/resources. You can find all of our webinar recordings, including today's webinar later on today. So that's where you can find the recording of this. Any other questions? We'll wait about another 30 seconds or so. So I don't see any other questions for now. Just I'll wait a few more seconds, but one more thing I wanted to say that I didn't say earlier at the beginning of the webinar, but obviously with the coronavirus, things are complicated all over the world. So we hope that your family and yourselves are safe and healthy, and we hope that you remain so. So yeah, I just wanted to thank our presenter, Phil Chen, Customer Success Engineer at Illusive Networks. Again, you can follow up with us on any of the links on the screen here. We hope you found this webinar informative. Please keep an eye out for the recording. Let us know if you have any further questions then, and have a great day wherever you might be. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.